Now the potatoes were looking really good a few weeks ago, and then we've had some issues. Basically the dryness has definitely nipped them back a bit. Now these I'd actually hilled up all the dirt around them just probably 2 weeks ago, and they're growing really well. Now one of the problems that we're having, I haven't researched to find out specifically which one they are, but these little guys right here are a serious problem right now. We just call them woolly worms. They do look like they're akin to the woolly bear, but I don't believe it's the same species. Most likely a moth species, but they're voracious. We didn't have a harsh enough winter, so normally their numbers are not that great right now. However, since we had a mild winter, they're everywhere. They're like a plague, and they will mow down everything. They've stripped a lot of the leaves off of my potatoes, and they've gotten into virtually everything. They eat grass, they eat broadleaf plants. I don't think I've seen them nibbling on the tree leaves yet, but I've seen them eating just about everything else. So they're not picky at all. Now we're clearing out here. There's very few left alive in this batch. This is going to be my some of my Royal Purple and my Rose Mountain potatoes. These were the last ones that I was clearing the weeds from. I'm going to finish that up this evening, but the outlook's not very good with that batch. Now a few of these in here are also Rose Mountain, but most of them are going to be Yukon Gold. Now these two rows that we're looking at here, these two double rows rather, those I just cleared probably 2 to 3 days ago. No more than 3 days ago. And we can see here evidence of what the little woolly worms do. But there is hope. As you can see, they're putting on new leaves. So we've cleared all of the weeds away, hilled up all of the dirt so that we've got a nice barrier there to try to hold in as much moisture as possible. And as you can see, I've discussed this technique before. We've got them all leaning toward the center. That way, once they do start bushing back out and get a good full canopy there, they will help to cover any potatoes that get exposed over the course of the maturation of the potatoes, and it will also help to retain as much moisture as possible by keeping the sun off of them. This being yet another row. Now, these last two rows, as you can see, are much more full and vibrant. That's because these were done just a short time after the very first row that we were looking at. Also, they get just a tad bit more shade in the afternoon, so it kind of keeps a little bit of that extreme heat off. Even though this is the end of April, I know in some states it's still chilly. Not here in Texas. We've already hit 90 a couple of times. So once it starts getting into the 90s, that's not necessarily the best optimum weather for potatoes. They definitely like it a little cooler than that. That's about all we have here. We do have a few other things going on over here in the garden. Eventually we will finish this gateway, and I'm going to have a little arbor over the top, some lattice work, and we're going to have morning glories and probably some gourds and different things growing along the top. Now right now what we're trying, this would be the Wando beans, or rather the Wando peas. It's just a green pea, like an English pea. Now we have a lot of chickweed growing in here, but the chickweed really doesn't do much to inhibit the growth of the peas, so I'm just leaving it because honestly I have so many different young birds right now hatching out. I'm keeping it because we're going to pick it from time to time and feed it to the baby birds. Now as we can see here, they're just starting to put on a few little blooms here and there. They're really taking off. I put up this little small fence. It was just some 2x2 yard and kennel fencing that I had cut in thirds. It was a 4-foot roll, and I cut it into thirds, so they're roughly 16 inches tall by probably about 15 feet long. Had a few pieces of that left. We just used a few store-bought posts, a few pieces of 1/2-inch electrical conduit. That stuff is beautiful. It's like baling wire and duct tape. Or zip ties. It's one of those all-purpose materials that you can use for many applications. Anyway, I just drove them into the ground just to hold up the fence here, because it's not going to be holding a lot of weight, just holding the plants, and it's going to give the plants something to grow on. And in just probably another week, we're going to have a whole fence of peas right along this area here. Now with this, we'll go ahead and bring it to a close. These are some of the beans, our top crop and tender green, which definitely are fighting a good fight against the grass. We're going to clear this area out tomorrow, but unfortunately my day job has been keeping me quite busy. Besides the fact that we have the various stay-at-home ordinances, they don't seem to apply to people in retail. We're still working as hard or harder than any other time of the year, and so we've definitely not slowed down one bit. So I'm having to work on this stuff in between shifts and when I can find the time. So in a few more days we'll have it all cleared out and definitely much more presentable. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of rain sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. We do have some rain that's due, but we've heard that little story multiple times now, and it's never really materialized. So I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to pick up over where we're working on all of the different barrel planters for the cucumbers and the melons, and we'll pick up there in just a moment.